Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well. Let me just change up my camera here. Make sure we're all zoomed in and ready to go. Hope you've had a good week so far, everybody. Don't be afraid to turn on your cameras if you wish to. But today we're going to be going through some fathom of finances, right? We hear it talked about quite a lot, and I have also mentioned it inside of the group recently. I was talking about this whole idea around finances, how to work these things, how we should be imitating what we do in real life inside the business. Well, that could also be imitating what we're doing inside the business in real life, because what we do one way, or what thing that we do one way, is very likely the way that we're going to treat that exact same thing in both personal end as well as inside the business. I'm sure you've heard the expression, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and it's kind of along those lines. But I do feel like finance is one of those areas where we all kind of freak out a little bit, probably because we've never really been in business before. Okay. And whenever we've been in business for a long, long time, we have a lot of experience. Well, then we're going to do things differently. So it's great to be able to take the time to share with you guys just an introduction to this conversation, and then be able to take this conversation on further inside a bit of a workshop series, get you guys working on a number of different things. Don't be afraid to use the chat box, everybody. If you've got any questions, feel free. No question too small, no question too large. So what I have, if I can just toggle my screen back on again here, that's cool. I'll toggle this back on. So what I have is I've got a bit of a whiteboard here, a jam board. I'll share this tab actually. And yeah, I want to Let me just make sure that if I move around here, yeah, it's just going to share the tab. So let me just change that. Toggle this back on again to a window, which is going to make this a lot easier. So if I have a Jamboard here, and I also have a document here. So I'm not too sure what we're going to need today. So I've come equipped with everything. So all good, Joanne. Yes, don't show the workplace on camera. It might look a bit odd. Hey, Ricardo, how's it going, sir? Hope you are well and ready with your gifts. Ricardo does like a good gift. So I believe that everybody can see my screen. Just give me an S inside the comments if you can see my screen here. And I am going to attempt to get this working. Yep, looks good now. So let me just take that out. I'll just clear that frame. Clear frame. Not very responsive today. I'm going to change some settings, but we'll see where we go. Sounds great, guys. Sounds great. So I really look at this, and there's a couple of different ways that we're going to dig into, but they all come around from the same concept. So personally and business, okay? Personally and business. So inside the chat box, guys, give me a 1 if you check your business bank account every single day. Give me a 2 if you don't, right? Give me a 1 inside the chat box if you check your bank account every single day, right? Inside your business, right? Now, for me, this is a mandatory, right? This is a mandatory. Now, this can be a 2-second thing, right? Because we've got to have a bit of an obsession around checking the business bank account every single day. Now, same question, but with 3s and 4s, okay? 3 if you check your personal bank account every single day. 4 if you don't, okay? So 3 if you check your personal account every single day. 4 if you don't, okay? So I like Joanne's card there, mostly. And then again, mostly. I like Gatry's 3.5. No, those are both 4s, right? Those are both 4s. Right? So the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, all right? So every day, okay? And again, this can be a check-in. And this is a good thing for a number of different reasons. One would be the likes of fraud protection, making sure that nothing's going on. But it's more so to have an obsession, right? To have a real relationship with your bank, right? In terms of your bank account. And this is because at the end of the day, that's the reason why you're in business. Right? We can talk about all different things, but the nature of the business is to make money. What you do with that money is your own, right? But that's the whole purpose. So therefore, we've got to have a real relationship of what we know is happening all of the time. All right. Now, who here, we'll keep going with the numbers. Right? Who here is running and checking their business profit and loss, right, every month? Okay. If you are, it's a 5. If you're not, and be honest, it's a 6. Okay. P&L every single month. Okay. So we got some 5s and some 6s. This again is mandatory, right? Because if you don't know what you are making inside your business, then ... we need to know, okay? So if you've answered 6, honestly, thank you, number 1. Number 2, change that, okay? P&L is mandatory every single month. And you've been given the tools inside All Reporting to do this easily, okay? You're already doing the work, or at least you should be, okay? So just take a little bit further, even if it's a quick glance, even if it's a quick glance to realize what you don't understand, that is a hell of a lot better than not looking at it at all, okay? Now, you know what I like to do whenever I talk about profit and loss. So, first line of a profit and loss, everybody. Inside the chat box, what is the first line inside a profit and loss? Okay, let me know. First line of a profit and loss. Wendy says revenue. Joanne says revenue. Mike says the big R. That's me. I'm Robert. I'm the big R. But yes, Mike is correct as well. So it is indeed. It is revenue. Okay, or sales or turnover, whatever you want to refer to it as. Second line. You know where this is going, guys. Second line. What's the second line inside the profit and loss? Wendy says COGS. Yes, thank you very much. Costs of goods sold. Okay, so what had to be a cost in order to generate the revenue? Okay, another way of looking at it. Okay, third line inside the profit and loss. You guys are getting really good at this. I'm loving it. Joanne says GP, gross profit. Absolutely, as does Wendy. Fourth line. What is the fourth line inside the profit and loss? Expenses. Nice one. And lastly, but by no means least, the fifth line is, of course, as Joanne says, Wendy says, net profit. Okay. Now, look how good you guys are getting at this, because we've went over and over and over and over it. All right. There's a reason why I went over and over. It's not to be a pain in the ass. It's not to be anything else. It's just to make sure the people are starting to get it, right? And I can remember whenever we started doing this, people had all sorts of different answers, right? We're getting them upside down and back to front. And as Wendy says, we have learned something. Absolutely. Worth its weight in gold. Okay. Now, interestingly, inside of here, right, we talked about going to war on expenses, right? Because expenses are gone, okay? They are gone, never to be seen again, okay? Gross profits, right? There's a little bit of a cycle in here because the COGS, if done correctly, will recycle back up into revenue, right? Because inside part of COGS, you have your landed cost of your goods that you actually sold. So you can, if you got in the revenue, you then rebought those units, let's say, and it would cycle back up, okay? Creates the cycle. Now, gross profit is just a calculation. Then we take out expenses. Then we're left with net profit. Net profit can recycle as well, right? And it creates that double dunt approach because we're recycling the funds and we may be able to recycle more funds, okay? Now, here's a big one, and I want you to be honest. Inside the chat box, it is a 7 if you do a personal profit and loss every month. It's an 8 if you don't, okay? You're doing it inside your business. So we should be doing it inside our personal, right? For even more reasons, right? So thank you, Wendy, for being honest. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Gatry. Mike has a 7 in there. So he's doing this, right? This is really, really important, right? Because you have exactly the same thing inside of here, right? And thank you, Wendy. Wendy says, I've realized that I'm frightened of money. Okay. And that's very honest. And I like that. And there's a couple of good points there. Number one, we're likely frightened of money because we don't understand it. Okay. We're likely frightened of money because we don't understand it. But we want it. We say that we love it. We say that we like it. We say that we want more of it, but that we are frightened of it. So therefore, the antidote here is to learn about it. Whenever we learn how something works, we will not be frightened of it anymore. Okay? It will be simple. Okay? Now, let me just draw these in. I'll not ask you again what these are because, you know, you've been getting very good at this. So I'm just going to draw these in. Now, okay. What is, on a personal basis, right? We know inside the business, whenever we say revenue or sales or turnover, we know what that is, right? What is your revenue? Personal. What is your personal revenue? Okay. What could it be related to? Or what do you think revenue would stand for? Okay. Joanne says income. Okay. Ricardo says income streams. Okay. Anything else, guys? Anything else? The two guys are not that far away, right? Joanne says investment. No, it would not be an investment, as in you would get revenue. You might get a stream of money from an investment, yes. Patricia says paycheck. Wendy says interest, right? So, yeah, you could get a stream of interest if you had money in the bank and you were getting an interest stream. Mike says income. Okay, there's one word. Joanne, Ricardo had it a little bit. Mike had it. There's a one word before income that I'm talking about. There's one word I want you to think about. All right. What is that word? What is that word? Gross. Yes. Okay. Gross income. Okay. What does it say on your pay stub? Right? Because that's not really income. Okay. So you can see the language here, guys, right? The language is good. We want to try and change our language, right? Because that's important. If we change our language, then we're going to learn more about money. We're not going to be as afraid of it. Okay. Now, what do you think we could put into the costs of goods sold? Okay. So the costs of obtaining that revenue. What do you think we could put in here? And this is by no means scientific here, guys, right? This is just a concept for you to work with, right? You likely never see anybody doing a profit and loss set of education on people, right? Because it's a little bit cold. But I think we've got to get cold. We've got to get black and white, zeros and ones, right? Now, Joanne says car expenses, meals. Mike says like fixed costs, like heating, etc. Now, number one, I want you to think outside of that, right? It's a dreaded word because we were dealing with gross income. Gateway, boom, right in there. Number one, unfortunately, right? Inside here, a cost of goods sold would be tax, right? Income tax and pay as you earn tax if you're in the United Kingdom. I think sort of federal things and like that in the US. Any sort of tax that comes out of your paycheck before you receive it. And there's a point there, right? Now, in order to earn your gross income, yes, there is going to be a cost of that, which is tax, but there are going to be other things, okay? Because you can't earn that money if, say, you don't have the ability to get to work. So this could be, sorry, my track port. This could be like transport, okay? So if you have a car, you got to start looking and say, do you run that car 100% to get to and from work? Okay. Because if you do, then it's all inside costs of goods sold. Okay. Now, you obviously cannot live on the street, right? So you have some form of housing, right? And some form of mod cons, okay? But not at all, right? Not at all. Because where you live, you could live in a smaller house and still be able to go to your job, right? Still be able to earn that revenue, right? So I'm going to ask you guys, I know this is getting deep, but does this make sense? Give me a yes inside the box or no if it doesn't. And maybe if you got a no, maybe you've got some questions, right? But the cost of the goods sold, or it could be cost of living, right? You have to be alive in order to make your gross income, right? Now, you don't necessarily need to be wearing Gucci fur coats in order to gain your income, but you do need a jacket of some description because it gets cold, right? So therefore, we got to try and separate these two things, all right? Now, the same thing goes then in terms of GP, right? I want you to have a look and calculate what the GP is. It's the same formula, right? It's your revenue minus the costs of that revenue, right? The cost of living in order to achieve that revenue, okay? Now, then what I want you to look at is true expenses, okay? Now, this will be easier on a personal basis, although you will have to bring some elements from here in, right? So, maybe you've got a Mercedes-Benz car whenever a lesser car would still get you to work, or a less expensive car would still get you to work. Maybe you have a bigger house with bigger bills, or a smaller house would still get you to work, okay? We want to start doing some work on this. Also, your mod cons. Dare I say it, I'm going to be extremely cold here, but the element of heating your house for you to allow you to go to work, that doesn't count for the kids, right? That doesn't count for the kids. They could go cold and you could still go to work, right? So putting these things in and getting some form of percentage, right? Not on tax, because tax is just tax, right? But getting some sort of element of a percentage, right, of these things that could relate to COGS, they're likely to show up again in expenses, okay? But then you got to look at your expenses, okay? So if you like going out on a Friday night down to the bar and having a few pints of beer, glasses of wine, you don't need those in order to go to work. Some might argue I need them after I go to work, right? But these would be true expenses, all right? True expenses. And then you're actually able to work out your net profit, okay? Now, of course, the whole idea inside the business is to drive net profit up. Well, the whole idea inside you as a person is to drive your net profit up, okay? So, guys, any questions? Just let me know inside the chat box. If it's all good to kind of take this forward and you take that as a bit of an idea to go and plan out, just give me a 1. Okay, just give me a 1 if you're all cool. You want to march on. You want to march on forward. If you've got any questions here, just let me know. You can also unmute. That's right. I forgot we're in a live room today, so you can unmute and ask a question if you so desire. Just interrupt me. I'm not precious. I'm not made of porcelain. Now, inside these areas, right? Now, there's an area here that we've kind of covered. Let me just get a little different color here. I'm going to have to reset this. It's very, wants quite a lot of pressure put on this, right? Now, this ugly word here, right? Look at this. When is tax paid personally, right? Let me know inside chat box. When is tax paid personally? Okay. Let me know. Wendy says at source. Absolutely. It's the first thing, right? And you don't even get the choice to pay it. It's taken out before you get your funds. Okay. Now, if we flip across to here, when is tax paid over here? Right? When is tax paid in the business? All right. Let me know inside the chat box, guys. When is tax paid inside the business? I'll have a little hydration while you think of that. When is tax paid? And I mean the majority of tax. All right. When is the majority of tax paid in the business? Yeah. It's at the end, right? Over here, it's at the start. Over here, it's at the end. Okay. And it's only paid, realistically speaking, the big stuff is paid on profit. Right? When we utilize sensible figures, like whenever we're making sales, we do not include VAT. That's technically not our money, right? VAT is not revenue, okay? It's something that we collect and we store it, and they come and take it away every now and again. We're just like we're the storage guys for them, right? But if we don't put it into our revenue, which we shouldn't, then it's an in out. Okay, so it's not really at the start or whenever we make sales. Okay, yeah. Mike says we're just the bag man. Absolutely, we do all the work. We hold it all. We store it. We pay the bank fees on it. We do all of that jazz, and they come along and say, "Can I have my money?" He says, "Oh, I thought that was my money." So there's a massive difference here, right? There's a massive difference. Here's the other thing, guys, right? Here's the other thing. Inside expenses over here, expenses are also gone over here, right? So we should go to war on these expenses, right? I'm not saying to live like a pauper, right? I'm not saying to do that. But what I am saying is unnecessary expenses should be removed, right? They should be removed because when we put them out, it's gone. The money is gone for good. Whereas if it went down into net profit, it can be recycled, right? It could be recycled here, or it could be recycled up in here. Okay, it could be recycled up in here. And that's very, very important, right? And absolutely, as Mike says, a very good point, right? If you have expenses here, which belong over here, get them moved immediately. Get them moved immediately. That is really, really important, right? Or if you're doing something inside here which can act, all right, 20% rent into the business, right? A portion, yes, that's kind of that's on down the line. Something we can cover inside the workshop for sure, where we get right into. But it's a very good point, right? But like I said, I'm not saying to live as a pauper, but what I'm saying is, if you've ever heard this expression, right, do as others won't in order to live as others can't, right? Do as others won't in order to live as others can't. All right. So, in other words, in society out there, we have this thing where they generate revenue. They would never look at it this way. Money comes in at the end of a month. By the end of the next month, we're screaming for another paycheck. That is no way to live, right? That is not even living. That is just surviving, okay? That is showing a disrespect to money. That is showing a disrespect to finance, a disrespect to organization, okay? It's no way to live. It's completely unorganized, and it's not going to end well, right? It's not going to end well. And it's all about this idea of what I like to call, like what I was saying there, do as others won't so that you can live like others can't. It's this idea of delayed ratification. Delayed gratification, right? Now, this is something that every single person should really lean into, okay? Because if we look at this whole idea, right, and we're talking about the business, all right, and we're talking about personal, right? What is the main focus of the business of our business? Now, I talked about generating profits, but it goes on from there, right? Yes, that is a short term, right? You would want to make profits inside a business, that's its purpose. But what is like the primary, right? Overarching macro of a business, right? What are we supposed to be, especially in our business, right? What do you think, guys? Inside the chat box. Come on, you know the drill by now. What do we feel is actually what we're trying to do, or what the business is attempting to do on a bigger scale, more macro? Right? Anybody got any ideas? We've talked about it in a way before. Well, one of your reports has got it. I'm giving a lot of clues here. It's an A word. It's a 6-letter word. And we're talking about building these things. Yeah, hangman, Mike, absolutely. We're talking about building something, right? Or it could be referred to as accumulating. Thank you, Gatry. Assets. All right. That's what it is. Okay. Now, whenever we refer to assets, we're talking about product inventory, stock inside your business that you know is worth more money in the future. Okay. And you know the sales velocity of said products. Okay. So whenever you're adding a new product into the business, you got to wait for some of that data, but you're still building assets, right? And we want to create more and more and more assets inside that business, right? And with more and more inventory of products that are selling. If that is all that you focused on, you win, right? You win. It's as simple as that, right? And whenever we can take this, we are cycling, right? So we take our revenue, okay? Then it goes down. We get our cost of goods sold, right? Then it goes down into GP, okay? Sorry, this pressure is really doing my head. Then expenses go out. Come on, pressure. And then we have NP, and we are cycling, right? And we are cycling, and we are cycling. So when we can cycle these funds round and round again, our assets should be going up, okay? Because we have the ability to cycle, right? We can cycle money round and round and round, okay? Now, personally, you can't cycle, right? You cannot cycle because you cannot take your net profit here and make your revenue get bigger, okay? Unless you went, did another degree in something and got an even better, bigger, higher paying job, right? And that's slow, okay? But because you've got a business, unlike a lot of other people, the way that you can cycle is to move this in here and cycle and cycle and cycle, okay? Does this make sense, guys? Just let me know inside the chat box. Does this make sense? Yes. Or if you've got any questions, okay? And of course, yes, assets versus liabilities, a very, very important one, which we will come to in a little second. Now, what is the purpose personally? Okay. Now, you could say I want to build assets, but that's not really the purpose, right? The purpose of life is not about building assets. The purpose about business is building assets. I could definitely stand by that. But what is the main point about personally, right? What is the biggest thing for me? And maybe it's different for a lot of other people. And I'm going very, very macro here, right? I'm going overarching. Right? What do you guys think it is? Right? What do you guys think personally about that? So Mike says experiences. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely that. Right? Wendy says being successful. Well, yeah, I think if we can delve into that a little bit and get the wording, that would be true. Anybody else? Come on. Every single person in here should be putting in an answer. We should know personally what it is that our life is about. Right? Wendy says security. Right? Patricia says live life as you choose. Yeah, I think this is it. I think it is to live, right? And to live, right? To live. Because we can talk about all of those answers, which are all correct, right? But isn't to really live, couldn't that be described as having great experiences or adding to the memories? To truly live, couldn't that be being successful, whatever you as a person define success as? As Patricia says, living life as you choose. So, to live without obstruction, right? To have security, isn't that to live, right? To really, truly live. So, this is where we've got to plot this out, right? Because some people really, really live on, a little plot of land with, some plants growing. They meditate and do yoga every single day. They're living, right? Maybe every single person here has a different version of what this is, right? So we've got to work that out, right? We must work that out because this here then really helps with this, okay? It's like, do you really need the Mercedes-Benz in order to live, right? Or would you be better off with a less expensive car and something else instead of that, right? What are the opportunity costs of maybe what you're doing inside expenses, okay? I'm not going to get too deep into that, but it's definitely something that I think that every single person should be looking at. Because here's the thing, right? If we have our business here, right, and inside 1 month, now I'm going to use some decent sized figures just so I can show the scenario here. Oh, this is really annoying me. GP down to expenses down to NP. Okay, so 2 examples here, guys. Right, revenue inside a month, 10,000. Okay, costs of goods sold, 7,000. GP, 3,000. Okay, expenses, I'm going to put in 1.5. Okay, net profit, 1.5. Okay, now in this scenario, you're not included in the expenses. You decide to take the net profit and you decide to put it into your own expenses. Okay. Now, not only is this expense gone, but this profit has now been turned into a personal expense and it's gone. Next month, we can expect the 10, the 7, the 3 to repeat. Okay. So, number 1, what if we went to war here and we just did exactly the same thing and we had 1 in here? We had a net profit of 2, okay? You could take it and do exactly what I just said about expensing it and it's gone, right? You're using it, you got yourself a new Gucci fur coat, you think that's living life, all good. Then if you did that, then the same thing would occur. But if you took this 2, right, and cycled it, right, eventually This 2, right, would come in and it would be inside of here, right? So if we had 2 going into something, we would likely, right, likely around that, see something around 18, right? I'm not saying this is in a month, but the 2 going into 10 would generate 18. Now, it will, of course, increase. It will, of course, increase the uh, costs of the goods sold, obviously, right? And we'd be looking there about 70%. Okay. So just slightly shy of 13, but I'll put in 13. Right? GP would now be 5, right? 18 minus 13 would be 5. Expenses would still be 1. Net profit would be 4. That's delayed gratification, right? Because you decided not to take this out. You decided to cycle it. And then it became this. Now you could take it and buy 2 Gucci fur coats. Okay? You got delayed gratification. Or you could decide to recycle it again. Okay? This is what we're looking at in terms of delayed gratification. Now, also, it was very interesting, right? Because I heard the other day, and I think the majority of people know my opinions on governments and banks and all this sort of jazz. But it was very interesting that I heard somebody who's weirdly not very qualified to speak on the topic, but they were talking about this idea that anybody who thinks that governments are out to get them are like crazy conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat wearing morons, right? That wasn't their exact language, but they were talking about, like the governments are here to kind of protect us. They do things for us. They look after us. And, anybody that's got any other opinion is just crazy, right? Well, as you know, I go the other way on that, right? Governments will do things to suit themselves, right? They will do things to suit themselves, okay? It was only about 100 years ago that, tax was a very, very small thing. Now you look into places and tax is everywhere, right? And that is just because they want to have more power. They have money. They pay that money out. They've never been in business before. They're very bad at organizing different things. And they will do things to suit themselves, right? And from that, whenever we kind of look at it, banks are absolutely no different. Because whenever we look at the things inside of here, right, inside this area, all right, because the tax comes out at the start, right, what I want you to start thinking about is this. Okay? Anything that you pay for on a personal level, right? Let's say inside personally, you have a revenue. I'm just going to put a figure in here with no pound signs or euro signs beside it, right? But the revenue here, right, and really let's call it take-home pay, okay? Take-home pay. Right. Now, for the ease of calculation, I'm going to be really, really kind on my good friend, the government, right? Because that person was just so right. The government are not out to get us. So I'm going to say our take-home pay is 4,000, right? Which means that tax is about 20%. Okay. Now, everything else under the line, okay? Everything else under the line, whether you regard it as a cost of living or cost of goods sold or an expense, right? Let's say, for example, you take your husband or wife or partner out for a meal and it's £100, right? It's not £100 because you've already paid 20% on it. Okay. You had to earn £20 or euros or dollars in order to pay the 100. Okay? That makes sense? Let me know inside the chat box, guys. Give me a yes or give me a no, Robert. You're a conspiracy theorist. The government loves me. Now, they would never do anything to hurt me or harm me in any way whatsoever, right? Yes, Ricardo. So 52% in Holland Netherlands. I was corrected on that. I must always say Netherlands. My apologies. 52% for high earners in the United Kingdom, 45%. Okay, so I was being really super duper kind here. Okay, really super duper kind. So this is very, very important, right? All right, also, guys, give me a 1 inside the chat box if you've ever had a mortgage or still do have a mortgage, right? The same thing can go for credit cards, by the way, right? But you know, the mortgage is always the real king, right? So let's see, mortgage calculator. Right, a lot of people say ones, right? So here we go. All right, into here. No. So start the mortgage calculator. Right. Now, we want to do a repayment so that we own the house after everything, right? Property price, I'm going to say 300,000. Okay. And we put down 10%. Okay. So we got a £300,000 house. We've got 30, 25 years, just going with the default interest rate. Okay. Right. Your monthly payment will be that, and you will pay this, right, over the term, right? That's another lie, right? That's another lie, because we don't pay 485,000, okay? Mortgage, mortgage, 400, okay, this is in sterling because I was using sterling there. 485K. That's not what we pay. We've got to pay this on top of that because we had to earn it first, right? We had to earn it first. So therefore, what we had to earn, right? So if I take my 485,000, I would have had to have earned just north. Oh, sorry. Jamboard's going to sleep on me. I've got to have a figure, right? I've got to have a figure of more than 600,000 to then be taxed by 20% or whatever it is for you in order to make this, in order to pay the bank, in order to get my 300 grand house, right? Now, this is just the way that it is, okay? But look what we're paying, right? It's just a 20%. You're paying double, okay? You're paying double. Now, sometimes, as Wendy says, you get some tax relief on the mortgage interest. Well, we're getting tax relief on this, right? There may be, but we're getting absolutely smashed whenever it comes to what we have to earn in order to pay these things back, okay? The same goes for credit cards, right? You got 20%. Sometimes the interest can be even worse, right? So we've got to start really, really understanding here, okay? Because as well, here is the biggest point right there, right? Whenever we make, we have to pay out first, okay? Right here. But over here, everything comes out first, right? It's actually much fairer. It would be much fairer in personal, right, if you earned your money, you had the cost of goods, because the cost of your goods sold inside your personal, then you had your expenses, then you had your net profit, and then they taxed you, right? That would be much fairer, okay? So whenever I hear people talking about, the government's got your best interest at heart, I switch off, right? I switch off, because this is completely unfair. Also, some expenses have tax on them, right? You go to the US, you're paying sales tax, right? You go to the UK, you're paying VAT, right? So we've got to really start thinking very, very sensibly around all of these different things. And we've got to take in this idea of what can we cycle, right? What can we cycle around, especially whenever we're dealing with something that can double, right? And whenever we start to build up assets and then more assets inside our business, inside our corporation, things that can cycle back around, create more revenue. And we then start to this idea of personally, we're just here to live. And whenever we have a business, okay, whenever we have a business, we have a luxury that I would say that many, many people don't or won't, right? And we should have this idea to expand upon the personal way is to live and live through, spell it the easy way, the text way, through the business, okay? Because we can cycle, right? We can start cycling. We can have our expenses inside here. This kind of gives us a bit of an intro, guys. I'm going to leave it there for today. I don't want to get too heavier in depth, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to this. I feel that this is something that we should most certainly expand upon. All right. Let me know inside the chat box if you would like to expand on this a little bit more. All right. Let me know. Just give me a yes, that'd be great. Or yes, I'd like to expand on this. Or no, I'm not really interested in this. Or we can then put on some additional sort of work series and get more into the in-depth side of where these things are, what we should be checking for, how do we look into this, that, and the other. The only thing that I really want you guys to work on is that idea that we were talking about at the very start, right? Number one, checking our bank accounts every single day, business and personal. Profit and loss inside your business every single month. And if you're not doing a personal profit and loss, start. Okay, just start. Open up a spreadsheet, open up a doc. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. Just make a start detailing out these things, right? If we're going to have a commitment to finance, if we're going to have a commitment to learning about it, and as Wendy said earlier, not being afraid of it as much, then we do have to dig into it. We do have to confront the beast, right? Confront the dragon, right? And slay the dragon, right? We are going to slay the dragon. So make sure, look into your plan. Also, just give that a little bit of thought around like building assets inside the business. How can I cycle, right? How can I cycle funds? How can I cycle net profit into the business? How can I cycle net profit from myself into the business to build more of an asset, right? And what we're going to be working towards is this idea of liquidity, right? The liquidity here is our goal, right? Inside the business. And personally, we just want to live, right? We just want to live. We want to live through the business where it is ethical and it is sensible and it is logical and it is legal, right? But we just want to live. Everybody's living can be very different. So do give some thought to living. What does that mean for you? And also just consider as well that whenever we are think about that idea of personally, the tax comes out first, right? Regardless. In business, tax comes out last, and it is dependent on profit. So thank you guys today for joining me on this wonderful Thursday. It was absolutely fantastic to jump into a little bit more of a deep conversation and one that we can take on further. Thank you so much for being in the chat box. Thank you so much for engaging and giving me all of my numbers and saying yes and this, that, and the other. I appreciate the fact that the majority of people here would like to take this on a little bit further. So do watch out. I know we've got a busy schedule coming up in terms of work series, but we are looking at bringing in this and a couple of other little bits that I've teased around, like spreadsheets and different things like that. So keep an eye inside the group. And remember, guys, have a great rest of your week, and we will speak soon.